Hey guys, welcome back to Clockwork, Dan to Noodles. I'm back from my break. I'm here to break down the 9th episode of part 2 of the case study of Vanitas. Before we get going, make sure you guys are subscribed. There's going to be a bit of bumping going around with some videos. I've also got my end of season review starting to be planned out. I've got most of it. I know exactly what's going down on the channel next season. I just need to figure out my top 3. I'm going to crown my top 3 anime of this season. I'm going to give you a hidden gem award as always. There is a Discord channel too. That just simply gives you a notification to your phone whenever videos go up. End of last week's episode, we were introduced to the white-haired boy, Mikhail. Mikhail has taken Domi, and Domi is being used to lure Noe, and Mikhail is after Noe's ability to read blood. It does feel like we have just entered a new arc, but with talking to you guys, it does seem that we're not going to get a season 2. Not anytime soon. Maybe in the future we might get one, but it does feel a bit sad that we're about to go into quite a big unveiling, and it's going to be the cliffhanger I was really worried about. I'm always worried that we're going to have a Pandora Hearts style cliffhanger, and I think we are going to head in that direction, sadly. Most of the first chunk of the episode is a recap, just a recap on how Domi and Noe grew up, the childhood friend Louis, all of this tragedy. Any of the backstories when it comes to this anime or Pandora Hearts, they're just tragic, they're dark. Mikhail's background is so dark, we're just gonna brush it up and say it's a dark backstory when we get there. Veronica, I love her design. I know she's a horrible character, but I do love her design. Absolutely loving the colour scheme with her as well. It's always like these pastel-y yellows, very pale versions of colours that could have been bright, which really works because she is a colder version of Domi. Her being cold and her emotions aren't quite where they should be. She only gets these half-weakened colours. She doesn't get the full reds or she doesn't get the full oranges. She has a pastel version of orange on her hat. She is on my cosplay to-do list. I love the older version because it looks absolutely gorgeous with the masks and everything. Quite quickly reintroduced to how sharp and how not so nice Veronica is, even if it does come to talking down to a child who has just lost their own brother. Domi didn't realise that Louis was actually her brother. We find out that within the vampire world, having twins is seen as a very bad thing. It's a unfortune, a misfortune, a bad omen. Whether it's hinting that they do kill twins, one of these twins would have died. Really, really dark. What would have happened if you leave a twin alive? Because I know Louis ends up cursed, but that is as well after the family's chosen what child they're going to be hiding. I've got a lot of questions about lure and things, but all of this stuff is probably covered in the manga itself. The anime is not going to cover all these little details. I'm starting to think about the nitty-gritty and I'm starting to think about how things actually line up. It is really peculiar that the family actually chose to keep the daughter. Generally, sons are seen as more beneficial because they'll carry on the family line. They'll be able to marry and continue the name. As a daughter, if they were to marry, she would take on the husband's name. We are also told that the grandfather who ends up taking Louis away, grandfather, the mentor, I'm very suspicious of the mentor, you guys know this, all the way through part 1. Something doesn't sit right with the mentor. I can't 100% put a finger on it. Well, with them keeping Louis alive just to be an experiment, I'll take the unwanted child and do this really bad experiment, which ends up resulting in Louis becoming a curse bearer, even attacking Noe. And I did think that the grandfather really favoured Noe, but Noe does get hurt before he's able to behead Louis. There is a hint that Veronica may have had a twin, but with Veronica's cold nature, it's very difficult to tell if that is just simply I've never had a brother or I had a brother but I don't care. Twins seem pretty common. I think there's not as many vampires as humans as we're used to in our world. Probably having quite a few twins in these big families. The Sadie family, Domi and Louis, and now Veronica, who I can't remember her surname, and I know it's a big family. That's another set of twins. It's a very bad episode if you are Domi, because poor Domi doesn't really catch a break. The absolute heartbreak of already blaming yourself for what happened to Louis. Louis is now dead. And also blaming herself because Noe had to go through what Noe did. Calls her Louis by accident. But it really affects poor Domi because Domi feels unwanted. She's just found out that she had a twin and her twin is dead. She's simply a letdown, as Veronica says, to the family, and maybe it would have been better if Louis was alive. It's such a bad episode. I feel so sorry for Domi. She's never really been my favourite character, but I wouldn't wish that upon anybody. Poor Domi this week. Want to give her a hug, but at the moment she's teetering on the edge of a very bad place. We do see the effect that has on a child. Tries to become more like Louis, cutting off her hair. Let's now jump to Mikhail. He confirmed all the theories I initially had of the character. We get to see how Mikhail first runs into Domi. I think most questions when it comes to Mikhail might get answered in the next 2 episodes. Really hope as much is answered as possible within the next few episodes. Love Mikhail's artwork. I love the design for Mikhail. I just have a thing for whitehead characters. Really like whitehead characters. Also love the creepy atmosphere that Mikhail uses to introduce themselves to Noe for the first time. The circus effect, the backlighting going on. Really do like it. Mikhail does say a very interesting line when stroking Domi's hair and getting her into a more of a trance-like state, that if the prince arrives, the princess and maybe even him, they can go back to their family. Weird. Once they deal with the Vanitas issue, he would just let Domi go or not. I don't know if Mikhail has the ability to curse people. Domi is under a trance. Mikhail's powers seem very suspicious. Even more suspicious, Mccull has a book. Might be a book of the Blue Moon vampire. I don't want to call it another book of Vanitas because that seems not to be the case. It just seems to be Mccull is mimicking the brother, and I don't think it is a second book of Vanitas, but it definitely seems to give off the same effect when it opens. The books look very different. We've been led to believe that there's just the one book of Vanitas and Vanitas is Vanitas. Who is Mikhail? We know Mikhail is essentially like a brother. I'm not 100% they're actually blood brothers now. I'm starting to think a lot. There's still room for it not to be a blood brother, but simply we're brothers in name. So Mikhail is number 71, and we know the number for Vanitas was 69. I think 70 was the one that broke. The professor is the guy who gave the arm to Mikhail. In the flashback, Mikhail has both arms. I think I can guess what's going to happen because we do see a lot of automatons. We have the dog in the fight as well, which is just that link to the Mad Professor. I can't remember the professor's name or anything. He's just the Mad Professor right now. The reaction we get when Vanitas is told what's going on, I believe Vanitas thought Mikhail was dead. Why did Vanitas kill their father? I presume there wasn't a father figure. I'm a bit confused though, because if I am going by the brothers by name thing, they don't really share an actual father. If they're talking about the mad scientist guy, I think he's still alive. He got saved by Rufian. I don't know if that's also why Noe seemed a bit confused. All the information we've had with Vanitas has been given very sparingly, and that's been done on purpose. Vanitas is supposed to be this enigma. We're not really supposed to know anything. Is a possibility that maybe Vanitas did kill his father, and that's because he was cursed. Maybe he was a vampire. Maybe he was a curse bearer. Something like that. The backstory to Mikhail, so dark. You guys saw it. Mikhail's backstory is dark. I don't want to go too much into it. I think it might be one of the darker backstories we've had so far. I love the backlighting because it just makes everything feel a bit more creepy, as we've got Mikhail upon Noe, a look into Vanitas and the character at the same time. Up until this point, we've not been given information for Vanitas. Learning about Vanitas via the backstory of Mikhail. Whether Noe will see it in a different light, because we do see Mikhail unable to process emotions properly because of the backstory that we've had given. I do wonder if Noe's going to see everything and maybe not feel the same way that maybe Mikhail does towards the brother. Mikhail being led by Roland did make the mistake of believing that Roland didn't know, or maybe they did know about the experiments going on. But with the kidnapping at the end, I would say it's unlikely that Roland knew there were experiments. There was the information that the professor was being allowed to do what he was doing with some of the knowledge of the church. Bit of a grey area. I want to believe that our boy Roland didn't know. They had to put down the vampire that killed Mikhail's mother. I'm going to go with it was a bad fight. Roland got hurt in that. I don't know the time period. Mikhail's mother was killed by a vampire. Roland breaks down and starts crying as well because I love Roland. By this point, Roland has really risen in my books. I really do love the character. Because of the backstory, because of how dark the backstory for Mccull is, Mikhail is unable to sympathise. Being raised by an abusive mother, Mikhail is detached, unable to express emotions, probably doesn't realise what emotions are good and bad. Mikhail doesn't get sad by the killing of his own mother. Mccull ends up kidnapped. Roland is forced back into bed, which is quite sad because they did just leave an orphan on their own. Catacombs of Paris. That's a creepy place to leave anybody. Adult would not want to be alone down there, let alone a child who's just lost their parents. fateful meeting where Mccull meets Vanitas. Vanitas gave himself up willingly to the professor, but we don't know too much more. So hopefully through Mikhail's eyes, we're going to get some information that we want. It just feels bad because the information about Vanitas is being given by force. I would have been happy to wait until Vanitas was okay with giving this information. It now thrust upon us. Noe will definitely take Vanitas's blood by force to save Domi, because Domi means a lot to Noe. If it came to it and Noe had to take the blood by force from Vanitas, he would do that. I do think he's going to do that to save Domi. So we've had a really interesting episode. A lot of information's been given, but that also makes me worried that we're just going to hit a nice cliffhanger and we're never going to get answers again. From what I'm getting from the manga readers, we probably might want to pick up the manga once this core is done. I don't think we're going to get a second season. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you are not too angry about the delay on this video. And I hope you guys are having a good weekend, have had a good weekend, and you're looking after yourselves. I will see you guys again, normal time next week for the next breakdown, episode 10 of Vanitas. Thank you guys so much. Take care. Bye-bye.